Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail. Mail! Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the Zelda Dungeon video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question is from Link Lover. Which Zelda game had the best ending out of all of them? That's a thing I don't think I can pick too easily, because I think a lot of the games had similarly awesome endings. They were just very different. Twilight Princess comes to mind with its very emotional ending, regardless of how you feel about the storytelling, that was a fairly emotional scene. The same could be said of Wind Waker with its kind of epic, saying goodbye thing. It had a thing like that, too. And, additionally, I thought Majora's Mask had a very deep ending where it talks about friendship, and it had some deep quotes by the Happy Mask salesman, and it just showed this relations of the characters and things being okay. It was an interesting climax to the tone of the game, which was very dreadful. And then, of course, there's A Link to the Past, which possibly has the most epic ending of any game, although, given the storytelling restraints they had, I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean, I think it could have been, but it was held back by the technology and the medium, but I think it was probably one of the coolest. So I don't think I can pick, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. This is one of those kinds of questions. Fierce Midnight 333 asks, you mentioned in your last mailbag that you thought the Deku tree sprout from Ocarina of Time was the Deku tree from Wind Waker. If this is so, how do you think it ended up in the Forest Haven? Well, the thing is that I know what you're saying, that if it was in Hyrule, how did it end up on a mountaintop in the Forest Haven? Now, there's a couple of things you can take into account. You could say that because he was talking about sprouting seeds to create new land, maybe he made a mountain. He could have moved. It could be a different Deku tree. I think the real answer is thus. That just like every other Zelda game, they decided to create a brand new overworld. We put Hyrule Castle there, not over there. No, we're putting it here for this time. They just make it up as they go. Every game has a different overworld, and it's not supposed to make sense why. It just is. I wouldn't even put much stock into it. So, for the sake of argument, suddenly the Deku Tree's on the top of a mountain, or something. It's just going along with that. Even though it continues Ocarina of Time a bit, it's doing its own thing, like it always does. Carnage Guy asks, many of the Zelda games had a night and day changing feature. Do you think a future Zelda game could have a season changing feature? Okay, I get questions like these sometimes. I don't want to say they are stupid questions, because that is rude, and it's not exactly fair or true. But they are definitely uninformed questions. Now, the thing is that I'm sure most of you understand why I'm saying this about this question. But thing is, this is one of the most best spelled questions I've ever seen. So I'm kind of calling troll on this one. Now, if I'm wrong, I apologize in advance, but I'm fairly certain this was intentional. And if it is, good show. It's actually pretty funny. I occasionally get questions like these. They're interesting, and they give me a good laugh sometimes. That's all I can say. Wow. Dr. Seaweed asks, do you think Skyward Sword will be delayed a lot like Twilight Princess since it has already been delayed a lot? I don't think it's fair to say Skyward Sword's been delayed a lot. It has been delayed because they said it would be in 2010, and now it's going to be moved to early 2011, so they say. That's one delay, and I don't think that's quite fair to say it was delayed a lot, unless you're talking about Twilight Princess. And I don't think that's a reason to suspect Skyward Sword's going to be delayed a lot. I personally sort of think they're going to meet their date on the 2011 thing, since it just seems like it's that close to being done to me. I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of basis for me thinking so, but I'd be willing to bet. Twilight Princess was a weird case because it was being moved from the GameCube to the Wii, so I don't think, since we're not having that, I don't think we're going to have that crazy issue. Zaxfla asks, what do you think about Nintendo's decision to give Skyward Sword Link baggy or traveler's pants as opposed to his usual tights? Some people are a little upset about it, actually. To be honest, I don't think it matters that much. It's just a new design choice for Link. They might change it or not, but I think traveler's pants would kind of make sense. Frankly, I'm a little disturbed that it's become such a big topic. It's Link's pants. Why are we talking about Link's pants? You know? And you also wrote, thanks, Axel. You're welcome, sir or madam. Corey Martin asks, how do you like your Zelda games to start, and how would you like to see Skyward Sword start? Calm like in Wind Waker, where you gradually learn the ropes in a safe environment, like Outset Island Village, or intense and dangerous, like in A Link to the Past, where you instantly have a big problem that you need to solve? You know, they both work for different kinds of games. I mean, I might have my preferences based on my own personal style, but I can't answer that too easily because I recognize that the different ways of beginning the game fit the unique games and their stories. Skyward Sword starts us off in this unknown land with this mysterious, floatingness in the sky. But, at the same time, we have a land below overrun by evil. From what I've gathered of the plot, it sort of sounds like we're going to have this story where it's just like, okay, land back, peaceful life, and then suddenly, BAM! Something crazy happens, and you have to go down into the land below. You fall from the sky. And then you have to fight monsters and crap. And apparently you also have to rescue a dear friend. So it seems like it's going to be this very easygoing thing to start, but then it's going to lead into this really epic and dire situation. And it's going to sounds very adventurous, which is a little different than what we see a little bit. Maybe not that much. It is an adventure game after all. Stephen Beeler asks, I was wondering if you had any tips on endurance dungeons in Wind Waker, the easier one, or Twilight Princess. I have only beaten each of them once, the second one mostly because I got lucky with the Dark Chew Jelly giving me a full revive. They are very tricky in general, because given the nature, it's a succession of battles, of course it's going to be tricky. My suggestion is to get all the bottle items, and if you get, magic items and magic armor or stuff like that in the game, get those too, if you're having trouble, that is. I like to go without them, but I'm insane. So, I'd recommend getting as many of this as you can, getting upgrades and such, and going in and try to practice the dodging, try to avoid getting hit. Make attacking your second priority, and also, in general, you want to start learning the enemies very well. I'd start practicing against the enemies and really pay attention to how they work. If you know them well, fighting them in rapid succession isn't going to be as hard because you know them very well, and you can deal with their attacks, the damage they do, etc. You can avoid them because you know them very well. I could say it again, know them very well. Mecopteron asks, most of the Zelda games have had a gameplay hook that makes them unique, such as A Link to the Past, Light and Dark Worlds, Majora's Mask's 3-Day Cycle, or Wind Waker's Sailing. From what I've seen of Skyward Sword, it seems the only new feature is enhanced motion controls. Do you think there's something we're not seeing, or is Nintendo relying solely on motion controls for this installment? To be honest, I don't think they're going to throw in some new crazy gimmick we haven't seen. That was our main gameplay demonstration, so I think whatever we see is going to be based on what we saw there. But basically, I don't have a problem with that because, the motion controls seem like, oh, big deal. You swing your sword and, whatever. But actually, I think it's going to be more interesting than that. I think we could really see parts of the game that play off this in a brilliant way, and I think it's going to be a lot more dynamic than you think. Besides, the games that had these gimmicks, in a lot of ways, I think that they were kind of diluting the experience a bit. The old, A Link to the Past, it was mainly just running around with your sword. Now, you listed the Light and Dark World. I think we might have that between the Skyloft and the Land Below. So, I think we might see kind of a old-fashioned experience like that. Sam Spitzley asks, since Tingle is originally from Termina, how did he get to Hyrule and live until the Great Flood? The thing about Tingle is I'm 90% sure he's one of those cases where they just took a character and brought him back. It's not the same person, but it's the same character. It's not like he lived so many thousands of years and survived. It's just they took the same character and made him reappear for no reason. No plot relevance or whatever. It's just he's there. The Tingle RPGs and stuff can offer a possible explanation that he's actually immortal as long as he has rupees, but let's face it, those games are completely insane. So I don't think that's really worth theorizing. I think they disprove themselves. And I don't think there's any arguing there. Crazy Asian Guy 2014 asks, can you sumo again after you beat Twilight Princess? Yes, you restart the game and get back to the sumo part. Kidding. No, you cannot actually do the sumo wrestling after you have done it the first times with the Gorons. I'm pretty sure you can't even challenge the Gorons to a rematch, though I might not be 100% sure on that. But basically, yeah, the sumo is kind of a one-time thing. Cardboard38 asks, assuming that Minish Cap is the first game in the timeline, do you think the Picori might be the ancestors of the Kokiri, or different forms the Kokiri took, like the Koroks in Wind Waker? I don't, because the Picori seem to function on their own, whereas the Kokiri were made by the Deku tree. The Kokiri seemed like innocent little kids who just had fun, whereas the Picori were like an ancient culture that actually were powerful and created their own artifacts and stuff, and they came from the sky to save humanity. It just doesn't seem like a relevant connection. Little kids having fun, godsend. Last question. Doblin asks, in the beginning of the Minish Cap, the hero's sword looks very alike to the one in the Link to the Past title logo. What if the Minish Cap was the last game on the timeline, and the Master Sword was the Picori blade, which broke and became the Force Sword? Well, actually, I have thought similar things. I don't know about the connection of the swords looking similar. I haven't seen that. I'd have to take a look at it. But I've actually talked about how, in my opinion, Minish Cap could just as easily go on the end of the timeline as the beginning. I mean, there's just as all the evidence that's all the evidence that tells us that it's at the beginning could also mean it's at the end, in my opinion. I can go into this more in the future, but basically, all these monsters overrunning the world, that could be the beginning of time, but don't you think we would have heard about it? What if they took over the world afterwards? What if Ganon won? And as you said, the sword could turn into that later. I mean, I don't know, it's interesting. Well, that's it for this time, guys. Be sure to send your questions to the email address in the description, and later.